As the title of the video states, you are all going to be receiving a free 5-star entering your account. This video is a continuation of the previous one where I was talking about the first 5-star selector ticket that is given to every single player, containing 4 5-stars to choose from. This is the second 5-star selector ticket, and this one has 25 5-star for you to choose from. Way more people to think about, and that means you might need a little bit of assistance to decide who is the best in your account. So that's what this video is for. Let's talk all about it right now. For context of this ticket yet again, this ticket will be given once Dorster's holiday arrives in Arknights Global. And no matter when you join the game, whether it's last year, this year, next year, or any years down the road, you will all be receiving 2 5-star selector tickets. So if you want the information of the first ticket, please watch that video first. I actually highly recommend that you watch that first before you come into this video, because I gave a few general tips there as to how to decide on the operators that you want to pull for. This video won't go so in-depth into every single operator. It will all be general instructions to help you first see which operators you may want to hold back on pulling first, and then afterwards, which operators are worthy for you to get ASAP via this selector ticket. So, I'm gonna do this a little bit of a tier list style. It's not exactly a tier list to state who is the strongest or the weaker operators. I'll explain to you in just a bit. Let's go to that tier list. Now, when you use this tier list, you need to understand that my tier list isn't stating who are the strongest 5-stars and who are the weakest 5-stars. All operators in the game have their own niches, have their own purposes as to when they shine the best. There are operators that are considered a little bit more all-rounded. They can be used in a lot of situations, and there are those that require specific point in times where if you use them, you'll be so grateful that you have them built. I'm someone in agreement to the belief that there are no bad operators in the game. Operators that are not often the popular choice can be a little harder to learn, can be a little harder to use, but if you really like them and you want to dedicate to them, so long as you understand how they work, you understand their skills, you know when it's put to the best use, then go ahead, get all of those unpopular operators and make them shine to prove people wrong on the opinions they have towards these characters. But undeniably, there are still operators that are easier for people to understand, easier for people to get used to. So, in the case of this video, the context of how I'm going to answer the question of who you should pick from the 5-star selector ticket, I'm going to be doing it with the perspective of a new player who just joined the game. If you're someone who's a veteran player and watching this right now, to me, you will either be using this selector ticket for a few reasons. Number one, you're either using this to get potentials, or maybe you maxed out a lot of your operators already and you want to get yellow certificates. Which, in that case, I let it be on you to decide which is the best option for you. Do you want certain operator pods, or do you think yellow certificates for your headhunting permits are more important? So that's the first point for veteran players. The second one is that if let's say you have some of the 5-stars and you're missing a few more, then you can use this video as information as to which 5-stars may be a better early pick for you. And if you don't have a lot of the 5-stars in the 5-star selector ticket, it probably means that you are a mid-game or early game player, maybe a day 1 player even watching this video right now. So let me now do the categorizing to all of the 5-stars that you could get, and we'll see which ones I put on the lower tier and which ones on the higher ones. So let's get started with that. Now let's look at the bottommost category that says don't choose this. Again, don't misunderstand that when I put operators in here, it means that they are the weakest operators. I have very strong reasons to tell you to not pull for these operators, which the 2 operators that I don't recommend you to pull are Texas and Cliffheart. Now the reasons why I put these 2 in this category is that they are very easy to obtain within the game. For Cliffheart, if you're a new player that just joined in, you will see that there is this 1-week login event that gives you a Cliffheart at the end of it. So every single player in Arknights are bound to receive at least 1 copy of Cliffheart, and you don't really need to add potentials to anyone early in the game. Hence, Cliffheart, I don't recommend you to use this ticket onto her. And as for Texas, you can also easily obtain her, maybe not within a week of the game. It could take you say a month, maybe 3 or 4 months into the game for you to obtain a Texas for free very easily. To obtain a Texas, you need to complete the pinboard missions. There are multiple phases of the pinboard mission, and once you reach phase 8, the end reward for that particular phase is a free 5-star Texas into your account. So if you diligently complete all of the missions, you are also bound to receive a Texas. I would rather that you hold out using this ticket onto Texas, use it on some other operators instead, and then complete the missions to get yourself a Texas. So that's why I put these 2 operators in this don't choose this category. By the way, if you're a veteran player with a lot of 5-stars and you're trying to decide on 5-stars that are good to feed potentials for, I would still say that Texas is a pretty good choice actually to get potentials for, since minus DP cost of the Vanguard is quite valuable. But since this video is more catered to the newer players, the ones who don't have a lot of 5 stars, I'm still gonna leave Texas right in here. Alright, let's move on to the next level above that says you can wait. So the operators in these categories are the ones that I would say that if you really want to build someone of that archetype, I would rather you go for the other variants of it, whether it's the 4-star, 5-star or the 6-star versions of them. The thing about them is that most of the time for these operators, people who actually build and use them more often use them because they really like the looks of the character. They either like their appearances, they like the voice behind the characters, or they like the storyline that the characters have. But in terms of the skill sets that these operators have, they are not gonna be like over the top. These operators all have 6-star variants of them, and the 6-star variants can do much more than what they do. So it may become this problem that if let's say you use them and you get the 6-star variant later, I fear that you will put them to one side and then you'll think to yourself as you're wasting your resources because you ended up building something that you don't really want to use. So for the operators within this category, I would have to put that these will be Fetor, Franca, Skyfire, Provence, Sora, and Croissant. So let me list down one by one as to why they are within here. So for Fetor, she's a 5-star specialist pusher. For her case, I would rather that if you really need a pusher in the game, I think it's better that you spend your resources on a cheaper 4-star variant that is Shaw. Cause Shaw can do just as much pushing as Fetor does, and even so, Fetor has a 6-star variant of hers as well, which is Weedy. As soon as Weedy entered the game, the popularity for Fetor kind of dipped down. The number of people that I see using Fetor nowadays is much less. The only group of people that I think are really still using Fetor today will be the people who play Specialist Knights, the people who play Shift Knights. If not, you might end up just putting Fetor on one side. So that's kind of why she's within this category. If you're someone who's just joining in, just build yourself a Shaw first. For Franca and Skyfire, the two of them have archetypes that are not really necessary early in the game, and even later on in the game, you may not be touching these archetypes all too much. Franca is a duelist guard, while Skyfire is an AoE caster. If you were to build anyone within these two archetypes, it's usually out of pure fun in the game and the fact that you want to experience these good skills that people have. Mostima and Dusk are still very fun AoE casters to use, especially Ifrit. Ifrit is technically a different type of AoE caster that is a single line. She has a class on her own, but she's also considered AoE. For Franca, Skadi and No Alta are the 6-star variants of them, and you might end up using them way more than Franca herself. To me, the usage case of these two are a little bit on the lower end. You normally build them just because of their aesthetic, but otherwise, I don't recommend them as operators that you choose early in the game. Later on, if you want them, you can pull for them, but for a start, not so fast yet. So Franca and Skyfire has the archetype issue where these archetypes are not often used. For Provence, she technically has a used archetype, which are the short-range, high-damage snipers. So Provence 6-star variant would be Schwartz herself, and Schwartz is honestly one of the most powerful 6-stars in the game. But when you put them side by side, Schwartz's firepower ability is far exceeding Provence's one. So that's kind of why I would say to hold back on Provence. She's often built for the fluffy tail that she has, but apart from that, I don't really see people owning a Provence all that much. There was a particular day that I tried to refresh my support unit because I actually wanted to borrow a Provence. None of my friends have Provence as a support unit, and not even any of my non-friend random units have a Provence as well. So I was kind of saddened that no one actually sets her as a support unit because I wanted to test her out. But yeah, that's pretty much the case. She's not exactly a very popular character per se. Now for Sora, I got a question recently where someone asked me if I don't have a Scouter who is a limited operator, should I be building a Sora? Because I want that same buffing effect that Scouter has. In this case, I wouldn't say that Sora is someone you should build even though you don't have Scouter. Because for Sora, the buffing ability that she has isn't as extravagant as Scouter's one. Sora still holds a very unique skill that no other operators would do the same, which is the fact that she's able to put all enemies in her range to sleep. This is very beneficial when you're pairing her with operators that benefit from sleep. For instance, Blemishan can attack sleeping enemies. But you wouldn't be playing Sleep Knights early in the game of Arknights. Eventually, you'll start to learn things like Freeze, Stun, Bind, and Sleep. And that's not something that you should be figuring out early in the game. So, to me, Sora is someone that you can hold back if you really want to build an operator like her, I'd rather that you just let her come into your account, then later on you decide whether you want to build her. Selector ticket, not so fast to pick her yet. And the last one that is Croissant, I don't highly recommend taking Croissant from the selector because as you can see from the selector, there are two other defenders that you can choose, which are No and Liscam. I find that No and Liscam have way more utility than Croissant, even though Croissant is a very fun defender herself, being able to shift low-weight enemies away from her. But apart from that, the use case of hers is not very high. You will find more reasons to be using No and Liscam. Hence, herself as a defender, she's down below in the you can wait category. Hold on for this cute character to come into your account in a matter of time. Alright, now let's move up to the next tier, which would be the It's Okay tier. So these operators are like the kind of alright, but I don't highly recommend them as well. There are some good reasons for them that makes them recommendable, but I wouldn't say there is an especially huge lot of things to consider. So the operators in this category would be Istina, Zima, Firewatch, Mayor, and Meteorite. Now for these characters, they all also have stronger variants of themselves. For instance, Istina has Angelina, Firewatch has Fartooth, Mayor technically has a 5-star variant that is a little stronger that is seen. Zima doesn't really have a replacement. She's pretty unique and very strong herself, but I'll explain why I put her here later. Meteorite has W, but I also don't think W replaces Meteorite. So let's go through the operators one by one as to why I put them here. So for Istina, Istina is a slower supporter, and the skills that she has are kind of directly the same as Angelina's skills as well. But the difference is that Angelina can't attack when her skills are charging, while Istina still can. Even so, if you compare Istina's skill 1 and Angelina's skill 2, they're pretty much the same. If you compare Istina's skill 2 and Angelina's skill 3, Angelina's skill 3 is a bigger multi-target powerhouse compared to Istina's one that only hits 2 targets. The thing about Istina is that she is a pretty good slower supporter herself, for the fact that she is able to do a huge amount of slowing to one enemy on a skill 1, and she can hit multiple targets on a skill 2. But I feel like the moment you get yourself an Angelina, or even a Suzerain who's also a slower supporter, you may end up using Istina a little less. She is a 5-star that I built in my account and I still find some use cases for her, but that will be for the reasons that I want a lot of slow in the level. Because of that, I would say that you can hold back on picking Istina so early in the selector ticket, and then choose some of the other operators I'll mention instead. Zima falls in the same faction as Istina, the both bears, under the Ursus faction, but Zima is a pretty unique Vanguard herself. She's able to buff the other Vanguard's attack and defense for a duration of time, and that is pretty good, especially if you have a Vanguard-centric composition. But if you're someone who have just joined the game, buffing characters is not so much of a concern. That is kind of why I would say that even though Zima has a very unique trait, it's not someone that I'll find that you must have early in the game. Strong Vanguard she is, there are other operators that will have much more reasons that you will want to pick them immediately. So that's why she's within here. It's okay for you to choose her. You be the decider as to whether you really want to take it. For Firewatch, she would have been in the waiting category, but because Firewatch got a pretty swell module herself that states that she gains 1 SP whenever she's attacking someone and it doesn't kill them. This can be a very fun module to experience, but that makes Firewatch very high investment, because to get her module, you're gonna need her at Elite 2 level 50. As a new player, you might not end up using Firewatch a lot, and I don't even know if getting her module will also make you feel like using her more. So she's not someone that I strongly recommend, but I put her up 1 tier above what I would have chosen, simply because she became a little bit more fun to experience in the game. For Mayor, she's a summoner, and summoners are very fun to play in the game. They can be very helpful to cut down on the number of operators you need to bring in the stage. But if you're someone who's new to the game and you're trying to learn the ways of the summoners, Mayor isn't someone that I would recommend as the first summoner to build. I would rather that you build Scene, because Scene is much more controllable as a summoner. You are able to place her drones and they don't retreat after skill usage. For Mayor, when you use it on skill 2, her robots explode and you must redeploy them all over again, which could be a little hard to get used to in terms of the skills. Because of her 5-star counterpart, that's kind of why I would put Mayor as someone that is okay for you to choose, but I think there's someone else that I would rather recommend that you build first. Whereas for Meteorite, Meteorite is honestly a super powerful 5-star AoE sniper. The thing about her is that AoE snipers kind of fall in a bit of the same problem as the AoE casters. Their attack intervals are crazy long, but The good thing about AoE snipers is that they have a very far range, 5 rows ahead of them, including the row that they stand on. This allows for far distance strategies when trying to take out the enemies, and the additional goodness is the fact that Meteorite has very high damage of an operator. It's even so that the 6-star variant W don't entirely replaces Meteorite, because Meteorite is supposed to be a huge, consistent physical powerhouse that wipes out a lot of enemies in a huge range. However, I don't put her as someone that I super strongly recommend to new players just yet, because she's a little expensive to deploy. She has a high DP cost, you need to get used to the high attack interval, and to me, Meteorite only really shines when you put the investment into her. To bring her all the way up to Elite 2, feed her some masteries, especially Mastery 3 on a skill 1, that's when you'll find her to be especially crazy of an operator. But early game when you can't build everyone so quickly, Meteorite might end up sitting in the backlog. Hence, that is why she's in this okay category. Alright, another level down, let's move on to the next one above that is acceptable. So these are the ones that I'll say that they're pretty good 5 stars and they have decent reasons for you to be choosing them. These ones have served many people well within the game and therefore they'll be considered the decent choices that you may be selecting. So the operators within here would be Null, Manticore, Silence, Premonix, Liscam, and Project Raid. Now for Silence to Project Raid, I will not be talking anything about them because I've already done a video previously to talk in depth about the skill sets that they have. If you haven't watched that video yet, as mentioned, try to watch that one first before this one, but you're already here. So you might as well finish this video and then watch that one later. But anyways, for these 4 operators, I put them under acceptable, basically because there is the other selector ticket. If you want to choose another one of them in this selector ticket, feel free to, because they are honestly very strong operators that have unique skills or traits that cannot be replaced by other operators. Now for these 2 over here, Null and Manticore, they have roles that are pretty essential into the game. For Null, she's a healing defender, with a 6-star variant of her being Saria. But even so, Null's healing power is tremendous, especially on the skill 1. To me, there's nothing wrong with building more than 1 healing defenders. Healing defenders are honestly a joy to own in the game, since they play 2 roles in one, a medic role and a defender role. But even though Null is a pretty strong 5-star contender at the start, to the point that I might put her within the good choice category, I lowered her down because no alter exists. If let's say you have an alter character in the game, you won't be able to bring the alter character and the normal character into the same stage. So if you use no alter in the stage, you can't use the original Null. Because of that, that's kind of why I lower her down by 1. And at the same time, there's honestly a lot of healing defenders in the game as well. You could still rely on a trusty 4-star Gumi or Spot when you first start the game. So Null, pretty strong 5-star herself, but not someone that I'm going to be so crazy with the recommendations about. For Manticore, Manticore is one of the bestest AoE specialists you can experience. AoE specialist's biggest problem is the high attack interval in the game. In fact, they have the highest attack interval, taking 3.5 seconds to deal 1 hit. But the fact that they are true AoE, meaning they can hit all targets within their range, and they have a decently high physical damage, it makes Manticore still a pretty decent operator. You probably need to pair her with a few defenders or guards to hold the enemy back. The reason why Manticore is in this high rating is also because of her skill 1. Her skill 1 is honestly a pretty damn good skill to experience in the game, which slows the enemy movement speeds at 35% at rank 7 and 50% at Mastery 3. Slowing movement speed is something that could assist you a little bit into the early game, but later on when you play high-end content in the game, if you can get all that movement reduction, Manticore is a pretty sweet one to own. And when you are playing maps that really demand an AoE power, for example if you play Originum Dust, or soon we'll all be playing integrated strategies, I would say AoE Specialist, good to have in the account. So that's pretty much why I will put Manticore in the acceptable category. By the way, if you want to see an entire showcase of Manticore, which I've done that before, you can watch a previous video of mine which shows me using Manticore for like 1 hour 30 minutes. She was a star of that particular integrated strategies run. I highly recommend that you guys watch that. Down to the last 2 categories. This one will be the good choice categories. These ones will be the ones that have so much to say about them. The operators that will lie within here will be Warfrin, Telopsis, Lapland, Platinum, and Blue Poison. So for these operators, they offer a lot of utility in the game, and for new players, owning these characters and building them can really help you a lot. So let me explain to you what they do. For Warframe and Telopsis, Warframe is someone who has multiple roles within her. Her first skill allows you to heal your allies according to a percentage of their max HP. And that is honestly very powerful. If let's say you have an ally with a lot of HP, if she can heal like 15% of their max HP, you are giving them a huge health boost. No other medics have been healing by a percentage of max HP just yet. Maybe in the future there'll be more, but for the fact that Warframe has this, skill 1, great skill to use early in the game. Skill 2 is something that's considered a little bit more late game, where it allows you to buff the attack of a certain operator that she chooses. Buffing operators is something that you really want to do a lot later on. And the good thing is that Warframe really feeds a lot of attack to a chosen operator. With both great skill 1 and skill 2, her own utility is not cut short by even her talent. Her talent is so powerful in the sense that whenever an enemy is killed in her range, she will grant 1 SP to herself and also to an ally within her range. Being an SP battery, someone with a huge healing power, someone who can actually buff the operators, it's all in this one package together, making her honestly a super strong 5-star to own. I even almost wanted to put her in a category higher, but I'm gonna hold back a little bit. I'm gonna say that she's within the good choice, although a super damn good choice. For Telopsis is a multi-target medic. Most of the time people praise her because of her especially powerful talent. Her talent at Elite 2 says that she's able to grant 0.3 SP per second, not just to herself, but to all the allies that are deployed. And that is crazy, because it allows so many of your operators to charge their skills way faster than before. Then, even for her skills as a multi-target medic, she's also able to offer a lot of healings to so many of her allies within her range. Hence, that is pretty much why I would say that Telopsis is also a very strong recommendation for people who just joined the game. Now, Lapland is a range guard, which means that she can shoot enemies from further away. This allows her to kind of sit back, maybe sit behind a defender, and still deal damage to people in front. The wonderful thing about Lapland is her skill 2, which allows her to change her damage from physical damage to arts damage. And it also allows her to strike 2 enemies in one go. The skill is pretty fast charging enough, and once you have her at M3, it definitely becomes a lot quicker for her to get her skill always to be up. If you're someone who's just starting the game, owning a Lapland could make things a lot easier as well. Because from all the way up to chapter 6 of the game, Silence is a pretty good ability for Lapland to have by simplifying so much of the stages from chapter 1 to chapter 6. For event stages that also allows you to silence enemies, to own a Lapland within the stage, you will be grateful to have her around. Since Lapland has so much of a difficulty simplifier, she's honestly a very strong choice, especially for people who just started the game. Even as we go late game and you have operators like Silver Ash and Taunts, I would still say that Lapland is a pretty nice operator to have around in your account. Even though there's not as many enemies in the newest events today that can be silenced, but I still use Lapland for both her physical and arts damage powerhouse that she offers. Now the next 2 operators in line are anti-air snipers. We've got Platinum and Blue Poison. And honestly, they're both very high damage anti-air snipers. For Platinum, the price of her comes in her skill 2, which allows her to extend her range more than the other anti-air snipers, and it also increases her attack for an unlimited duration after her skill is charged. Her amount of attack can go beyond 1000 damage per hit, and that makes it a very strong anti-air sniper, because not a lot of anti-air snipers have that much damage going in them per shot. While Platinum offers the nice extended range and increased attack, for Blue Poison, she herself is also a very strong 5-star sniper. The unique ability of Blue Poison comes with the fact that for her talent, it allows her to add additional arts damage per shot that she deals to the enemies. And having both physical and arts damage every hit, that allows you to target the enemy's weakness much more easily. Of course, the amount of arts damage that she tops up isn't as high as the physical damage that she does, but it's still good to have that little bit of chip damage that she puts onto the enemies. And for both her skill 1 and skill 2, they're both especially strong as well. Skill 1 is a consistent skill that allows every few of her shots to be a stronger version, and it also allows her to attack 2 targets in one go. For skill 2, it allows you to attack up to 3 enemies once you give her the masteries, and with so much multi-target attacking going on, it's honestly impressive what Blue Poison can do as a 5-star. Because of all these reasons, these 5 stars that you see here under Good Choice, they're honestly really great operators that I think you should be experiencing within the game. Now to end off this list once and for all, there's one more operator that I need to talk about that goes above all the tiers that are shown here. The last operator of the 5-star selector ticket would be Spectre. And in this case, I'm gonna put her as a yes category. So Spectre is such a strong 5-star to the point that I can't praise her enough. I don't even think it's right to call her a 5-star. Instead, she feels like a 6-star herself. And I think a lot of veteran players, old-time players, will also agree with me on this that Spectre is honestly way too powerful of an operator. The reason why Spectre is considered a busted person is the fact that her skill 2 allows her to not ever drop her HP below 1. So what it means is that for skill 2, her attack is increased for the skill duration, and her HP simply can't fall below 1. Even if she encounters a boss that deals like 1,000 damage, 3,000 damage, 1 million damage, as long as this boss doesn't have like a delete operator button, for example Empress Blade and Frost Nova, even if 1 million damage goes against her, she's still not gonna die. She's just gonna stand her ground and say, no, you can't get me. So honestly speaking, that is so busted of a skill that no other 6-stars can really follow suit with her. The closest 6-star that has this level of immunity would be Surtur. But even for Surtur, she can still be wiped out much faster than Spectre. Since Surtur only stays on the ground for 6 seconds, Spectre can be immune to any damage for up to 15 seconds. So it really just makes Spectre one heck of a busted operator to own, and it's also coupled with the fact that she has a brilliant talent that's paired with her. The moment you have her at Elite 2, she gains a self-regeneration ability that regains her health by 2% of her max HP every second, and that is a lot of HP that she's healing. If you have her at max potential, it goes up to 2.5% max HP per second. So all in all, this being an AoE guard with a busted skill, with a great talent paired with it, she just honestly feels like a 6-star. She's either considered to be one of the highest end 5-stars, or just a very low 6-stars, at least to me. So that's why she's put so high up there compared to the other operators below. With that, I've completed the entire tier list of all the operators I would recommend from this 5-star selector ticket. So, do you agree with this tier list? Let me know down in the comments below, and let me know as well as to whether whatever I've discussed has helped you a little bit better to choose the operators that you want. Alright, that's it from me in this video. I hope you guys have enjoyed your time here, and if not, I shall see you guys in the next video of mine. Enjoy Dorsa's holiday to the fullest. Alright, bye bye everyone!